Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Tie me kangaroo
Let's look
down,
at some of the
sport.
major changes to the workspace of Photoshop since the previous series recorded in CS2. CS4 and 5 have an entirely new user interface, particularly with regard to the new Adjustments panel. Here's your Layers and Channels panel, and the things we'll use the most are Levels, Curves, Vibrant Saturation, and Color Balance. And this is your clipping and non-clipping selection. Most of the time I use clipping, but you can change that here and on the individual tabs here. See, when the arrow appears, the adjustment layer is clipping, meaning it's only affecting the layer immediately under it and nothing more. And when I remove it, it would affect all layers underneath. If I make a change here, I can blink it on, off. I can click hold for the previous state here. I can negate it here or discard it. I can scoot back to the Adjustments panel with this arrow to put, say, a curves layer there. Notice that every time I double click on an icon, it returns to its respective adjustment layer. So adjustment layers are nice in that they don't make the file size larger like a duplicate layer does. While we're in curves, remember on-screen control, which I demonstrated in the last series. We get the eyedropper and we can create a point there, create a point here, and drag that point, placing a third point to hold down the highlights. As far as customizing the workspace and the panels, you can start with photography, which has a lot of nice presets, then customize and save your own. You can expand and collapse the panels, and notice that your masks are available right next door to the Adjustments panel. So when you make an adjustment, you immediately have a mask available. And I can invert the mask to conceal all or feather and all that stuff. The options are still under this little arrow but are off the bloody screen. You can drag the panels with the double line, redock them, or close them, separate them, basically whatever the heck you want. Here's your adjustments, masks, layers, channels, histogram, navigator, info. The histogram now defaults to colors rather than RGB, but when you expand the view you can change that. I've actually come to like it quite a bit to show imbalance in your RGB channels. On the Levels and Curves panel, you now have an option to show clipping for black-white points. As I grab the sliders, it shows clipping in highlights and clipping in shadows. I really like that a lot. The Crop tool now has an option to display the rule of thirds to aid in your composition. There's been some keyboard shortcut changes, though of course you can still save your own. Remember when I showed you how easy it was to grab highlights with Ctrl-Alt-tilde? Well, guess what? It doesn't work anymore. But now, when you click in any of the channels icons with Ctrl held down, your highlights are selected. And you can select Inverse to grab your shadows. I hope this fills in some of the gaps between the last series and processing in the current versions of Photoshop. This is Craig Moore from Melbourne.